All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming out again. My name's Jason. We're so happy to have you folks here for another week of readings with the original work series. So tonight we have a fantastic script, quite eclectic, I guess. I don't know if that's the proper way to describe it. And we are so fortunate to have our author here as well, Mr. Jeff Irvin. And Jeff, thank you so much for coming out. And hopefully we'll be able to do some justice to your script. The ones doing that, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our company tonight is Drag Strip Courage. If you could give them a big round of applause. Nice. They are out of Fort Worth, Texas, right here in our neck of the woods, and often perform over at Arts Fort Worth, which is right down the way. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I will turn it over to Seth Johnson, their owner and proprietor. And please sit back, relax, and enjoy Drag Strip Courage, reading The Texas Book of Beasts by Jeff Irvin. Thank you. Enjoy.
All right, guys. Our readers tonight, we've got Actor 1 is
Matt Kraft.
Actor 2,
Nicholas Zeburn.
Actor 3,
Gianina Lambert.
Actor 4,
Caleb Hall.
Actor 5.
Alex Zaharie.
All right, Actor 6 and 8.
Elizabeth Webb.
I'm Seth Johnson. I'm doing Actor 7. And what did we skip? Actor 6?
No, it was me.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it was it. We did all the
that.
numbers.
All right, guys.
Okay.
And take us out.
A reading from page 1 of the Texas Book of Beasts. Prologue. Flashback. 3 years and 2 months.
Actor 4 leaves the stage. Actor 5 comes on stage and stands looking out through binoculars. Actor 3 joins her.
Anything new on campus? No new species. A male summer tanager has appeared. I've seen 2 others before, all in the database. Nice. Has your other male of interest appeared? Yes. Walking east-west across the wall to period 2, as usual. Which t-shirt? It's Wednesday. Ah, Paddington Bear. Yep. This is so dumb. Just lie in wait and find an excuse to bump into him. I can't do that. I'd freak out. I need to think up some kind of organic intro. You know, it's a lot easier for birds. Take a class with him next semester. I can find out what he signs up for. I work at the registrar. I'll find him by photo. Then I'd have to think up some way to be noticed. Not my strong point. What gets the attention of a pear-shaped nerd you have never met who wears Paddington Bear t-shirts?
The entire cast of 8 enters.
This is a simple fable with 4 principles: a property developer, a university professor, a young biologist, and a toad. This is the property developer about to break ground on a new residential neighborhood.
Lost Limestone Acres.
A progressively eco-friendly, almost affordable family development.
It's all a question of risk. It's all computing the odds. It's defining the edges and guessing the outcomes without provoking the gods. It's all a question of bounds. It's all selecting the court. It's refining the ranges and testing the choices while keeping your means of support. It's a flying trapeze for investors. And me. I arc back and forth while they hang by their knees. If the timing is right, my swing and release.
We all want rousing rates of return. We all are espousing great rates of return.
Let's quintuple what T-bills allow us to earn.
When we sell that new housing,
we'll have money to burn.
When we bring in that rousing rate of return.
Let's meet a university professor fundraising for a new museum wing. A reading from page 3 of the Texas Book of Beasts, The Diorama.
I am Professor Scam Likely, permanent assistant head of the zoology department, transferred from a prestigious East Coast private university. I was brought here to fulfill my lifelong dream, establishing the
Professor Likely Hall of Amphibians
in the Museum of Natural History. Displays depict the Arctic, the mountains of Nepal, the forests of New England, the jungles of Bengal. Where the flora and the fauna are arranged au naturel, in instinctive groups and poses, over captions quickly read, and it's called a diorama.
Because everything is dead.
You know, a diorama is even better than the zoo. for the setting is as true as good research can construe. And though the eyes are made of glass and the feathers held by glue, it's all preserved forever in a sterile, safe milieu, where the creatures are approachable, close enough to touch. And though the fur may fade a bit, it never fades too much. So give museums their due. They're better than the zoo.
And they smell much better, too.
The
Professor Likely Hall of Amphibians
will display the new amphibian evolving technique I have developed by trial and error, using hundreds of frogs during years of research.
Actor 2 pulls out a plastic salamander and a clear jar and shows it to the audience.
See how well preserved the salamander is? See how bright the colors are? You would almost think it was plastic. You know a diorama is even better than the wild, where it's hard to be beguiled when the creatures get all riled and run away and hide before they're properly compiled. Why, we never know their genus and get them classified and filed without detailed dissection where we weigh and count and test, pickle all the innards and stuff and mount the rest. For placement and displays named, as I've already said, nature dioramas.
because everything is dead.
A reading from page 6 of the Texas Book of Beasts, Ode to Endangered Toads.
This tale is set mid-2020. The city had grown, was growing aplenty. Banks backed any scheme lacking obvious faults, while visions of sugar plums danced in their vaults. But some of the locals resented the sprawl and moved up the creek beds away from the mall, away from, in fact, the homes of us all. They hopped or they slithered or skittered or ran.
A toad may have the gift of gab.
Hey, baby.
But otherwise is dull and drab.
Its shape is either fold or flap.
And its movements an unsteady start and stop, a clumsy lurch.
Cur,
Plump.
cur,
Plop. While your normal frog can hop from kitchen floor to countertop, your average toad can only flop. A clumsy lurch.
cur,
Plump.
cur,
Plop.
Lift the paunch, flex the haunch, launch, start and stop.
cur,
Plump.
cur,
Plop. Now when your life is bounce and bump and slides and slips,
cur,
plop,
cur,
plump.
Plump.
You'd think that you'd be stiff and sore before you found your paramour. But nature deals routinely with such fears and gave him the voice and her the ears.
Hey, baby.
But sometimes he can call and call, and no one seems to hear at all. And he thinks perhaps he's just too small to pierce the dank and heavy air, or even worse,
that no one's there.
And so he calls out, sounding gruff.
Hey, baby.
And then he calls out, sounding shrill.
Hey, baby.
Then he tries sounding tough.
Hey, baby.
Then he might insert a trill.
Hey, baby.
In the end, a lonely toad will even try an alpine yodel,
Yodelay. Boo.
saying in a sexy baritone,
Here I am. He toad. Alone.
The problem here is he's the last male of a species. What can we do to make this guy more attractive to the last female of the species? We know she's somewhere near. Let's add some ambient nature to make it more homey.
click, click, click.
Click, 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 click.
Let's add some dramatic music. Lighting. It works.
Actor 3 enters his female toad.
But
Lo, what light through yonder yucca breaks.
And here she comes across the swamp, a clumsy lurch.
cur,
Plump.
cur,
Plump. And he, excited, climbs a root and looks at her remaining mute. There she is, knobby, splotched, Satine.
The prettiest toad I've ever seen.
So they meet within the soggy sump, shyly have a conscious bump, and then move on.
Kerr,
Plop.
kerr,
Plump.
So when they finally flop 2 feet, they think it's time they stop to eat and sit beneath a shady weed at a place he knows where mosquitoes breed. Then they dream perhaps of something droll while snapping down a dozen holes. And she thinks,
my, you know some nice places.
and so they become a pair without much pomp or loud fanfare. Then, when there's nothing left on which to snack, the toads continue on their track to the next bog, mossy stump, a clumsy lurch.
Kerr,
Plop.
kerr,
Plump. So, parents, are there any parents out there? A brief reminder. Though toads look harmless on your lawn, to mosquitoes, they're like Genghis Khan. So, unless you like mosquitoes, tell your child a fib of sorts how catching toads can lead to warts.
Where does a gar go to smoke his pipe and read a book?
The
garden.
A reading from page 14 of the Texas Book of Beasts. Flashback, 3 years. The Gar, the origin story, part 1.
Actor 5 grabs a chair and sits in front of Actor 8, a piece of paper in her hand.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
So, what is your idea? You have 10 minutes to get me to buy into your idea for a 10-minute play.
It's a story about a young woman trying to find a man.
Okay.
I am following to the letter your instructions in the syllabus.
Go on.
It starts off with a sing-along.
What?
Bum, bum, bum. So sorry. And this is why tech people are so important. Here we go.
On page 35, I'm in love with the boy. On page 35, on page 35, in my yearbook, but the wonderful boy on page 35 doesn't know I'm alive.
You know that you have to direct and perform this in front of the class, right?
Exactly. This will warm me up. I'll freeze solid and never say a line without a warm-up. Plus, the song suits exactly my purpose.
You have 9 minutes left.
A young, very inhibited woman, Anne, is standing next to a tree on campus inventorying birds through field glasses and entering data on her phone when another woman, a close friend, walks up and asks if anything interesting has flown in. Anne shyly explains nothing of interest has flown in. Then she points at a man. The friend knows she is terrified of meeting men. Why him? He wears interesting t-shirts. She first noticed him when he blocked her view of a killdeer. He was wearing a Paddington Bear t-shirt. She has never met a guy who would wear a Paddington Bear t-shirt and thinks he might be somebody she'd like. She enters his data under species, nerd, gender, male, in her bird inventory and enters his t-shirts under plumage. Get it?
Yes, I get it. I see where this came from, at least. You are a biologist, right?
Yes, I am very good at field surveys.
So you are playing Anne.
Yes. Anne reads out his other t-shirts. Dungeons and Dragons, Big Bend National Park, San Diego Zoo, Ravenclaw.
I can't imagine how you are working in the required march into the play.
I haven't worked in. I am following to the letter your instructions in the syllabus.
How?
He has a t-shirt reading March Madness.
You know that is totally contrived.
Well, the March t-shirt suits my purpose. The syllabus said the march had to be an integral part of the author's purpose.
Which is?
To pass your course.
Well, I am not sure with this idea you will pass.
We have introduced the developer, the professor, and our endangered toad. Next is our hero, a professional biologist. She discovered early on that she was different. A reading from page 18 of the Texas Book of Beasts, The Minnow. A school of minnows moves close knit, and when they're startled, they just flit. Dart and flit, dart and flit, move as one and never split.
Hey, you guys aren't going anywhere.
It just feels safer to submit to a life of dart and flit, dart and flit. You don't have to think a bit.
Enough of this. Why don't we try this way? Come on, I'm going this way.
Now, some minnows would admit they get bored with dart and flit, and they might get smart and quit.
Bye, y'all.
But such events are not the norm, for most minnows just conform.
Like all heroes, our hero went on a journey before she found her purpose. She started out one person appalled at the state of the world. A reading from page 20 of the Texas Book of Beasts, The Daddy Longlegs.
The hats are the bodies, and our arms are the legs of the daddy longlegs.
En masse, the daddy longleg looks like a cloud of snarled fishing hooks. I'm going to show you all how to move like a daddy longlegs. You will find this very useful skill. You can teach your friends in the long, boring bits of mass gatherings.
Oh, like football games.
Or legislative sessions.
You get your group together, and each person wears a hat. Each person grabs the sides of their hat and stretches their hat directly full arm length overhead. The body is still, the hat is still, perfectly vertical. The full group scrunches together in a tight pack. This is the typical inert stance of a daddy longlegs. But when it is disturbed and gets excited, it becomes unstable, speeds up, and goes crazy, like bouncing on a pogo stick across a corrugated metal roof. When prompted, in this case, when the music plays, you pump your hat up and down and ping randomly around the room. When it stops, all come back, rejoin the pack, and assume the inert stance. Okay, calm down. You can use this excited mode when...
Your team scores a touchdown.
Okay, calm down.
Glaciers are melting. Like, the sea level is rising. Coasts are flooding. Hey, turn on the music.
Someone tries to raise taxes.
Okay, calm down. En masse, the daddy longleg looks like a cloud of snarled fishing hooks. Singly, they look handmade using needle-nosed pliers out of bubble gum and bits of wires. Entomologists contrive to make us think it is alive. But the creature moves so slow, more up and down than to and fro. So nature surely would correct such a preposterously designed insect.
A daddy
longlegs is not an
insect.
So I figured out that shouting by myself while standing on a soapbox and handing out flyers at big events or outside the Capitol did not accomplish much. So I needed more support. So I took my message to the internet.
A reading from page 22 of the Texas Book of Beasts. A note on social media. The last thing in the world you want is a cricket for a confidant. For if you swear a cricket to keep mum, he just can't help but tell a chum. So cricket A tells cricket B, which soon confides in C and D. And so on through the alphabet, until the whole backyard knows your secret. Stop!
And after 3 months of blogging, I had over 50 followers. And one time when I posted, I got 12 likes. But I knew, of course, that I wasn't the only one on the internet.
And don't sit near ponds when you converse, for a group of frogs is even worse.
Ribbit.
Ribbit, ribbit.
Ribbit.
We can test that. We'll do both at the same time. Everybody click and ribbit. Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And all this shouting was going on. Well, perhaps it's just a toss-up. Whether frogs or crickets spread more gossip. Let's divert to a topic we can all agree on. Texas biting insects. A reading from page 24 of the Texas Book of Beasts, Texas Subjunctive. If the mosquito
Were a needle. If the red bug
1,000, 2,000, 3,000
We're a dead bug. If the fire ant,
were benighted.
we should
We should be
delighted.
In my new subdivision, the homeowners association will be funded to do weekly area fogging to kill mosquitoes.
What?
The fogging will be performed with a benign compound safe for humans, deadly to all bugs, even roaches. Completely natural, derived from materials produced by the decomposition of ancient forests over millions of years.
What? The subdivision sign was total nonsense. There is nothing eco-friendly about Lost Limestone Acres, which pollutes much more than modern standard practice. Has wells that threaten springs, and most importantly, it's the current home for an extremely rare toad declared extinct in the 1950s. I saw it last week when I wandered
Trespassed
onto the property.
What do you call a female gar from Brooklyn?
A gargoyle.
So I decided I need to augment my campaign to save the Earth with something perhaps achievable in the near term. I decided to save the endangered toad. But I needed to think through a process that got me where I wanted to go.
A reading from page 26 of the Texas Book of Beasts, Thinking Through the Problem.
And decided to make my plan flexible, emulate nature. A raccoon living near to man becomes an avid handy-dan who ponders, puzzles out, and plans attacks on local garbage cans. If the lid's not tightly on, tip the contents on the lawn. Thwack! Rip the plastic bags apart and choose your supper a la carte. If the barrel is too stout to tip the heavy contents out, climb on in and jump about. Sometimes when this trick is tried, the can falls whack upon its side. And once again, the table spread, cross porte cochere, the flower bed. If the barrel does not tip as you cavort beneath the lip, you can rip the slice and trim, scattering refuse round the rim.
Gross.
Well, one simply can't be prim when working when the light is dim. I started with trying to understand property development.
A reading from page 27 of the Texas Book of Beasts, Researching the Problem.
I made an appointment to have someone explain to me the permit process.
I'm the manager of site development permitting for the city, and as such, I judge compliance of site development plans with the Land Development Code. Inexperienced developers look at this document and think, no one could possibly comprehend all the requirements in here. They then submit plans and await a review that they expect will miss a thing or two. Well, my motto is impartiality requires precision, and precision requires a checklist, one for each thing to be checked. These are the checklists for the initial completeness check. These protect the portal. These put everyone on notice that we don't miss anything. First, you check the filing fee, stamp the date, stamp the time, then you have to log it in, attach and mark the right form.
1 copy complete, 2 copies complete, 3 copies complete, 4 copies complete, 5 copies complete, 6 copies complete, 7 copies complete.
I check the blanks on Form A and Form B and Form C. I check the blanks on Form D. Check all blanks are filled.
Then I have to log it out. First one through, 1 for 1. We'll do better next time. Ready to go full speed?
Ready!
Ready.
Ha! First you check the filing fee, stamp the date, stamp the time, then you have to log it in, attach, and mark the right form.
1
First
copy
you check
complete,
the
2
filing fee,
copies
stamp the
complete,
date,
3
stamp the time,
copies
then you have to
complete,
log
4
it in,
copies
attach, and mark the
complete,
right
5 copies
form.
complete, 6
Ha!
copies
First you
complete,
check the
7
filing fee,
copies
stamp the
complete,
date, stamp the
1
time,
copy
then you have to
complete,
log it in,
2
attach,
copies
and mark the
complete,
right
3 copies
form.
complete,
Check the
4
blanks
copies
on
complete.
Form D. I check
Complete.
all the blanks are filled. Incomplete. When will they ever learn?
When
will they ever learn?
Then I have to mark the form. I regret that you have failed.
To provide a properly annotated site map with Form D.
Please supply the missing documentation and return. Please remit a new filing fee. Then I have to log it out and send the thing back. First you check the filing fee. No filing fee!
No filing fee! No filing fee! Do they think we do this stuff for free?
3 completeness checks completed already.
How can you influence the development permit process?
The process is precise. If you follow the rules in every detail, you get the permit. The experienced developers sail right through.
Always?
Generally. The rules keep the playing field level. You have to be fair. But sometimes the development becomes radioactive. Neighborhood associations get upset. Environmental watchdogs get upset. Powerful constituents get upset. Then politicians intervene and things get complicated. What development are you tracking?
Lost Limestone Acres.
Well, that development is very competent and thorough. Develops right to the limit of regulations, documents in detail, knows his stuff. I think you can assume he will obey the rules.
Well, sometimes the rules aren't tight enough.
He's having his first public meeting tonight.
What do you call an event where they grill Gar?
A barbecue.
A reading from page 31 of the Texas Book of Beasts, the first public meeting.
And that is the end of my first required presentation at my first required public meeting. I assure you I will comply with all the stipulations added to my just submitted permit, and you will eventually learn to cope with the changes.
You have a reputation for doing the minimum required to protect the environment. Can you explain this stance?
In the good old days, to develop land, we employed a technique called the fait accompli. We'd move in at night and chop down a tree, and before all the locals could get in cahoots, we'd rip out the stump and bury the roots. There was progress and prosperity in the glorious days of the fait accompli.
Fait accompli, fait accompli. It's tough to prevent what you don't know will be.
We all need surprises to ward off ennui.
Here today, gone tomorrow. That's a fait accompli.
Remember that landmark?
Fire trap?
Built in 1903 with an elaborate facade of odd filigree. On one Sunday morning, you reduced it to screech.
But it took until Wednesday to haul the debris. The bankers, the builders, and planners and me pulled it all off in complete harmony.
You mean secrecy?
Oh, there's no finer way to build civic esprit than all join in a fait accompli. But now we have the landscape ordinance.
The tree ordinance.
The antiquities ordinance.
The environmental ordinance.
Oh yeah, that ordinance. When going on vacation, don't leave your sprinkler on, or the sitting city council's apt to cordon off your lawn, for the mix of standing water, grass, and clumps of phytospecies forms an ideal ecologic niche for endangered wetland species.
Don't be disarmed by the sky.
What do you call a gar you see on the horizon that appears wavy and fades in and out?
A garage.
I then took the lead from the permit staff and contacted and joined a series of organizations, those educating on reducing urban pollution,
Build rain gardens.
those opposing new wells,
Save the springs.
the local neighborhood associations,
No more traffic.
deep pockets.
Save the wild places!
I told each group about the toad and bit by bit coordinated opposing the development permit.
A reading from page 35 of the Texas Book of Beasts, presentation to Neighborhood Association.
My friends and I, we call ourselves the Four Droplets. What can you do to improve the quality of water we drink? Where do we get our drinking water? The lake. Where does the water from our streets go? The lake. So let's talk about rain draining uncontrolled from houses to the streets and onto the lake. Here we are, the Four Droplets, meeting in the cloud. I'm so excited. Here we go. Getting closer, almost time.
Oh, I feel good. Maybe transpiration this time? We'll fall on the ground, head on into the roof.
Oh, yeah, I really like the capillary action.
The stomata are so mystical. You just...
No soft misting this time.
Getting heavy.
Getting heavy. Yeah! 4 raindrops fall onto a tiled roof. Bumpity, 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 down the tiles. Whoosh, along the rain gutter chute, into a downspout. Falling, falling, splat, onto a splash pad. Tumbling into the driveway, getting covered in grease and oil.
Yuck.
Sliding down the driveway, into the street gutter, suddenly buffeted by a major flow of more grease, trash, yard waste, dog poop, momentary peace waiting at an inlet, then whoosh into the inlet, into a pipe, darkness and chaos, then tumbling out down a slope into a creek, complaining loudly about the gross grease the whole way from the driveway, and finally into an eddy, slow swirl, all feeling miserable and dirty, finally looking up and seeing a rainbow.
Look up! A rainbow.
This is your first trip down a storm drain, isn't it? I can tell. That's not a rainbow. That's oil.
Just evaporate me, man. Get me out of here.
Uncontrolled urban runoff can turn the hydrologic cycle into hydrologic psycho. But just a few simple controls that homeowners and neighborhoods can put in themselves can help a lot. Let me show you. If I can convince my friends here to try this one more time, y'all, the wind's picking up. Time for another round.
The signs are not
Sorry, I have a conflicting appointment.
I summon the laws of nature.
No fair, invoking a higher power.
Watch. It'll be better this time, trust me.
Crash.
Here we go again.
Crash.
Getting heavy, getting heavy. Yeehaw! 4 raindrops fall into a tiled roof. Bumpity, 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 down the tiles. Whoosh, along a rain gutter chute, into a downspout. Falling, falling, splat. Time out. You just dropped into a rain barrel. You will be used to water the flower bed. You have come off the gutter downspout into a rain garden, a shallow depression planted with herbs. We overflow into the driveway.
Oh, why me? You promised.
Wait, see what comes later. But first, here comes the mess of grease and yard waste and dog poop flowing in the street.
Not again.
What's this? Wow, I'm being cleaned? This is a bioswale, a bit of depressed area with native planting that the developer reserves at road intersections to cut off flow before the curb inlet. You are being filtered through the soil and will come up through the roots. So, this extra green, slightly bigger lots plan to reduce runoff, space for bioswales, along with the roads, cuts down on a number of lots, but really cuts down the pollution and helps on flooding. You know, rain barrels, rain gardens, bioswales. Those are things that you can do right now in 2022 to help out. Google it. Grow some herbs, save the earth. Oh, one more important thing. I put a flyer on your chair about an endangered species of a toad that is known to exist in the area to be developed as lost limestone acres. This species was last seen in the 1950s and has been declared extinct. If that area is developed, there is a very high risk that this toad population, very probably the last population of that species anywhere, will die. Because the creek will be dried up by domestic wells, because street runoff will pollute the creek, or because of any other number of reasons that killed the toad everywhere else. There is an agenda item in your meeting today where you vote on adding your organization to the list of organizations that ask the city to delay permit approval for the development until the toad can be studied and rescued. Please consider voting for this resolution. Thank you. Nice to see you, Professor. You must live in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Did you like my skit?
Well, you progressed a bit.
You know, your class changed my life.
Well, I'll say this. I would never have pegged you for a future community organizer. What happened to your stammer?
What do you call a gare from the eastern part of France?
A gardelet. A reading from page 39 of the Texas Book of Beasts, the Fordosaurus.
This is a public service announcement. Don't drink and drive. Don't drive and text. George drank till he was stiff, then drove his pickup off a cliff. A professor of taxonomy, a geologic age ahead.
Classified this pickup as an enormous quadruped, for the sole remains discovered, sandwiched in the mudstone bed, were some cryptic bits of plastic near some tracks made by the tread. The curator
Was first perplexed and then decided to be brash and fashioned an enormous head from steering wheel and dash with gun rack frames for antlers and a bumper for a mustache. I set up this creature in its own museum wing and pinned some turgid captions that glorified the thing as the kind of vicious carnivore school children loved to dread, and displayed as proof of diet George's fossil head. I advertised the monster to make tourists stampede through as
The terror of its time. Which, by the way, is true.
A reading from page 41 of the Texas Book of Beasts. Flashback 3 years ago. The Gar, the origin story. Part 2.
Well, I am not sure with this idea you will pass.
I have followed your syllabus to the letter. I've done the readings, attended every class, and maxed out your written quizzes.
You never say anything in class. That is a big part of the grade. You clearly don't know what you are doing on this assignment. The idea is frankly lame.
I'm shooting for a C.
A C cannot possibly help your GPA.
At this point, it would lower my GPA from a 4.0 to a 3.95. I'm a summa cum laude, shoe in already, but being flunked would delay my graduation, not something I want, or expected, or deserve. I have followed your syllabus to the letter.
Why take this course? There are much easier courses to take to get an arts credit, and you, frankly, are not suited to directing or performing.
This course suits my purpose.
Which is?
To pursue my muse.
I have no idea why this class is plagued with misfits. There's this expert from the engineering department who has loads of enthusiasm, but absolutely no clue about playwriting.
I know.
I really should flunk him. Like, I can't bring myself to do it.
Don't even think about it.
Him? Well, I didn't expect that. He's not exactly...
He may not be the boy most girls think of as handsome.
Okay, I get what you're doing, but all you're doing here is telling this guy, who I presume you expect to be watching from the class audience, right?
Yes.
That you have written down his t-shirts and must like him. The assignment has to be coherent to the audience as a whole. What does the audience get out of it when you say he's wearing a t-shirt from the San Diego Zoo?
Oh, a great question. This is the exact question asked by her friend as they talk. I explain this. The image on the shirt is Przewalski's horse. Here's the thing. He's not wearing an image from the zoo of an elephant or a tiger or a toucan. Those and others are much more popular choices. What he knows is that the San Diego Zoo has saved that species. They are the last of their kind, and there is a herd of Przewalski's horses that run free there, thousands of acres, and they look and act proud and feral. They still look weird and stunted but they are special in that environment. Each shirt he wears shows similar choices. The Big Ben shirt he has is an image of a desert tortoise.
Spare me the details. You've got 2 minutes left.
Here is the important part not said. Most people's t-shirts express a desired look, a tribal membership, or God forbid politics. His t-shirts each point to a sharp brain or a good heart. But you have to be into the topic to get that. Not messages to the world, messages to Anne.
You need to add that in for this to make sense.
I'm not sure I could get that out with him sitting there.
The purpose of this session is to help you refine your idea. You need that bit.
Okay. Would I pass?
Maybe. You are following the syllabus to the letter. Time's up. Go ahead and finish your play. I might give you a C+.
I have a special request.
What?
At the end of the play, I say, one more thing. Leave the performance area, go up to where he is seated, and ask him to leave class and join me for a coffee. Will you let him leave if he decides to join me?
Sure. But his response has a very good chance of being very painful to experience or witness.
Whatever his answer is, that's theater, right? Thank you. A C+ will be really great.
Next.
Who was the most famous marching guard?
And at this point, you will look into the program that you had, and in there, in the handout for the play, you'll have the answer, Edward L. Gar. A reading from page 45 of the Texas Book of Beasts, The Daughters of the Chisholm Trail.
As daughters of the Chisholm Trail, we want strictly understood The purpose of this sisterhood is just to serve the common good. Select,
Elect,
elite,
correct,
direct.
discreet.
We, the DCT, repeat, we want it strictly understood. The purpose of this sisterhood is just to serve the common good. Select,
Elect,
elite,
correct,
direct.
discreet.
Although we project a bit,
Effete. Note that we get somewhat put out when the uninformed dare to doubt that what we really are about
is amassing funds.
and wielding clout. Have a 19th century beating hall ready for the wrecking ball? Well, we will kindly send y'all an invitation, terse and short.
To
Tete-a-tete with us in court. For contrary to what most people think, we know how to start a stink.
The daughters of the Chisholm Trail can desktop publish, flood the mail.
Man, the phones have rummage sales.
Meet councilmen and give them clues that maybe we can help them lose. Unless they meet the evening news.
And help the DCT along our trail to yet another heavenly grail. Oh, welcome!
Thanks for letting me join. Lost Limestone Acres is likely to spawn a whole forest of domestic wells exempt from regulation. This is an important issue for some very sensitive live springs in the watershed. You'll like her. Very smart.
We agree. We met her after the neighborhood association meeting. Welcome. How can we help you?
I want to talk to you about the new subdivision. I have explored a bit in that area.
Trespassing.
Well, in any case, I'm glad I went and looked around. I heard a toad call that hasn't been heard in 70 years.
Hey, baby.
It is a very distinctive call. I am positive it is a toad that was declared extinct in the 1950s.
A reading from page 49 of the Texas Book of Beasts, Politics and Permitting. So yesterday, a council person and a nice lady from the Daughters of the Chisholm Trail came by inquiring about the new subdivision and asking if permitting was on track. I had previously fielded calls from several environmental groups and 2 neighborhood associations. I said, yes, I had just approved the permit, which is obviously not what they wanted to hear. They provided some anecdotal evidence about a toad species on that property, a species they claimed had been assumed extinct since the 1950s, but admitted isn't listed on my city protected list. I was sympathetic, but explained that there are rules and procedures that must be followed, and unless the species was on my protected list, there was nothing I could do but follow my rules and procedures and ignore impacts to this creature. The nice lady then asked if someone provided me with proof that there were a unicorn on the property, and that the development would destroy the only magical plants the creature consumed. Would I approve the permit? I said, if the unicorns and these odd plants were not on the threatened list, then yes, I would approve the permit. So I go home last night, and I watch the evening news, and there's an interview with the councilman and the nice lady about how the person in charge of development permitting at the city, me, wanted to kill off unicorns if we found one. And here was this toad, very like a unicorn, that the city wanted to let be exterminated. So I explained to the mayor this morning that there are rules and procedures, but he didn't let me finish and stated it was his judgment that the survival of this toad involved an immediate threat to the health and safety of his citizens, and under his executive powers, he was putting this toad on the threatened list pending a confirmatory study. I explained to the mayor that according to my long experience in city government, his powers did not extend to ordering me to do this. And there was a period of silence. Then he said that if I had the power to kill off unicorns, he probably could find some power that similarly dealt with my position at the city. I hum a simple tune when a politician's face turns blue and he rants and raves and threatens you to toe the line and boost his view. I hum a simple tune, for he'll change his mind next phase of moon or even by this afternoon, for he's up for re-election soon. While I go on, 'cause I'm immune to changes. Year to year, I'm nestled here for a full career. And if perhaps the man has clout and pushes hard to get me out and submits the proper form, it still must pass through Jane and Norm and Fred and Jack and Sue, and each one needs a long review. And sometimes, when it gets to Sue, who is a good friend of mine, we serve together in the church vestry. She's been known to lose a file or two. So the process has to start anew. So by the time that I've been fired, he's apt to find that I've retired. Meanwhile, as we fought and fussed, the city's gone from boom to bust. The council changes, as seems just, from common folk to upper crust, or the other way, to plastic fork from silver spoon. But I remain, because I'm immune to changes. Year to year, I'm nestled here for a full career. Still, one must choose one's battles, and this doesn't kill the project. It just requires more study. Not a bad idea, actually.
Crickets are one note. The variety you hear is primarily in the source location. You hear crickets from over here, from over there. In the scene, the crickets' locations are yellow, red, orange, and green. A reading from page 51 of the Texas Book of Beasts, The Sound of Crickets.
Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. When you read, you begin with
ABC.
When we click, we go yellow,
Build rain gardens.
red,
Save the springs.
orange, no more traffic, green.
Save the wild places, click, click.
Now, everybody, yellow, red, orange, green, and so on are only the tools we use to build a campaign. Once you have these colors in your heads, you can click a million different approaches by mixing them up like this. Red and green.
Save the
Save the wild
springs.
places.
Orange and yellow.
No more traffic.
Green and yellow.
Save the wild places.
Yellow and red and orange and green.
No more traffic.
Springs. We did it! Now to seal the deal, we need to chant the pain to the pavement.
Bitumen, macadam, asphalt, concrete, tar. Libations at the altar to the once and future car.
That'll do the trick.
And that is the end of my last required presentation of my last required public meeting. I presume we are no closer to agreement. You have told me this is the last underdevelopment watershed on this side of the city, that its spring-fed creeks, large stands of heritage trees, and fields of mature native grasses are unique, and I have responded, exactly. That's why I'm getting home buyers from Michigan. I assure you I will comply with all of the stipulations in my just approved permit, and you will eventually learn to cope with the changes.
Why are you claiming your development is permitted? I checked just before this meeting, and we managed to get that permit revoked. Your land is the habitat for a highly endangered toad that was previously assumed extinct. Lots of studies to do.
What do close friends call a gar named after Van Gogh?
Vinegar.
A reading from page 54 of the Texas Book of Beasts. Research is pure.
It's a great day. I've just been granted permission to collect a few specimens for study of an endangered species in a local spring. As I tell those who give permits, those who apply the laws, to probe thresholds of knowledge is to serve a higher cause. There is selfless striving hardship, needing government supports in the crafting and redrafting of original reports. The most officious bureaucrat can affix his signature, for he knows although most politics makes right or wrong obscure, ivory towers need no whitewash, for all know
Research is pure.
Research is pure. As I tell prospective donors, those who control the grants, to probe thresholds of knowledge is a form of real romance. There is searching, and then there's courtship, needing confidence and tact in the mating and debating that marries guess to fact. For the undefined enigma has a virginal allure that inspires us modest thinkers, for we know
Research is pure.
Research is pure. I once taught a course for freshmen who you all know have fuzzy goals, and they flail about for purpose while consuming parents' doles. And half would want to save the earth, and I should point the path, but only without homework while avoiding complex math. Since then, I just teach seniors who are somewhat less distressed by visions of lost Eden, for that's not on the test. They camp out in the reading stacks on a feral-focused quest, to divine what type of poison snuffs out each type of pest, or what growth-inducing hormone is best mixed with types of feed, for they know that type of knowledge is what employers need. But I, my friends, have tenure, and am by endowment freed from the petty practicality that open markets breed. I devote my life to principles that ever will endure, and evade the crowds up in the clouds where I know
Research is pure.
Why are you claiming your development is permitted? I checked just before this meeting, and we managed to get that permit revoked. Your land is the habitat for a highly endangered toad that was previously assumed extinct. Lots of studies to do.
That's news if true. Bit of irony there. I just let a university professor have access to my land to collect rare toad specimens. He had a permit from a federal agency. He's going out there tonight. After today, there may be nothing left to study.
A reading from page 56 of the Texas Book of Beasts. Why bats sleep on the ceiling. Why do bats sleep on the ceiling? The delicate explanation is the only sanitation in a rock cavity is gravity.
So this was the low point. But then she decided to act. As a fervent believer in public transportation, she pulled out her CAP Metro app and, as usual, immediately found a bus stop near her with a bus going to exactly the spot that she wanted to go. Scheduled to arrive at the bus stop in 2 minutes. It was nighttime. She ran to the bus stop, and as usual, the bus was right on time.
Urgent! To the end of the line! The fate of a species hangs in the balance.
Meanwhile, back in the creek, Professor Likely is stalking upstream with his long fork.
Hey, baby.
2 with 1 stick.
Wait a second. I have a better idea.
But I have a permit.
This idea will make your museum a huge success.
Go on.
Well, why not save these toads? You might get an academic prize for studying them. Get a lot of good press. In your museum, rather than displaying an embalmed thing that looks like a paperweight, you create a giant bear-sized video hologram of the now famous toad that kerplops around the foyer, stops and calls out, "Hey, baby." They'll line up at the door.
A cattle aigrette is referenced in the next scene, hence a slight out-of-plot diversion. A reading from page 55 of the Texas Book of Beasts, the cattle aigrette. The cattle aigrette is a bird that serves as a mailman to the herd. The aigrette, without recompense, brings news to families split by fence. How else could Mama find out how her baby heifer became a cow?
She generally does not want to hear how baby bull became a steer. A reading from page 56 of the Texas Book of Beasts, the developer's decision.
You know, I could have battled the DCT lawsuit, done all the studies, and eventually gotten a permit, as the land just gets more valuable by the day. But then I had this recurring, really strange dream. The dream started out with this mass of people in a dark room chanting bitumen, macadam, asphalt, concrete, tar. It faded out and I was in my car and drove up to the property gate, got out, opened the gate and walked in. A thick cloud of mosquitoes swarmed around me so I couldn't see. Then this huge raccoon came barreling towards me and knocked me down into fire ants' nest. I tore off all my clothes and leapt sideways under a limestone overhang into a densely packed mass of daddy longlegs. I panicked and jumped up, banging my head into the overhang when a huge cloud of bats flew out of a cave opening under the overhang. Now woozy and hurt and spattered with guano, I stumbled into the creek bed and lay naked, spread eagle, on my back on a rock at the top of the riffle. I couldn't move, though I tried and tried. Below the riffle I saw a school of minnows going back and forth in the eddy. Back and forth, back and forth. This wasn't calming. This was like the ticking of a clock in a countdown. Felt a shadow pass over, and an egret landed right next to me. It stared at me a while. Tick, tick, tick. Then it turned its beak towards my private parts and asked, "Are you selling this land to a conservation organization?" I said, "Sure." And it answered, "Good decision." Unfolded its wings and stepped upwards into the air and away. Then I woke up. So I sold. I did very well. Not as well as I would have, but hey, the toads are okay. Not a bad result.
A reading from page 59 of the Texas Book of Beasts. Prairie dogs are something to think about. Basically, we are pretending for a minute that metaphorically we are a prairie dog town on the lookout for predators. When we see a predator, an owl picture is displayed. We each blow our whistle. Oh, we didn't rehearse that, did we? Sorry. Okay, the prairie dog, before a stroll, sits up, sniffing in its hole, and scans horizons and the sky for unwelcome passers-by. A hawk picture is displayed. Thus, prairie dogs of every clan learn to pop up, sniff, and scan. And if sentries serve as planned, peace prevails and the town expands.
I am 6 years old and have had 5 litters of 6 pups each.
And to all surrounding land.
False alarm!
But there was a careless bachelor in the town, spied a female 2 holes down, and popped up, sniffed, and stayed to bark a tender serenade, singing of the wide renown of her lovely shade of brown.
I got a brown-eyed lover, bark, bark, on the other side of town. Bark, I don't want to keep her wet.
And since he didn't stay awake, he was eaten by a passing snake. And those that gawk will feed a hawk, and those who howl will feed an owl, and those that have a dozing sentry grant more hungry critters entry. And thus it is that teeth and talons enforce the local natural balance. The prairie dog, before a stroll, sits up, sniffing in its hole, and scans horizons in the sky for unwelcome passers-by. An owl picture is displayed. Note that those who stay alert, in general, don't become dessert.
But the main point of that sketch is not about staying alert. It's about if you have predators, you keep the prairie dog in balance with their environment. What happens if a species figures out a solution to get rid of all of its predators? And the only constraint on its expansion are the progressively more limited resources of the planet. Something to think about? No. Something to be alarmed about. An act.
Now at this point, a table and 2 chairs are brought on stage. Actor 4, who's wearing the scar frame and takes it off at the back of the stage, Actor 5 and Actor 4 sit across from each other at a table. The scene is mimed. They're doing a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and work at the puzzle throughout the scene. Actor 4 is slow and meticulous. Is slow the right word? I don't know. Turning pieces this way, and that working within a space on the table about the size of a plate. Actor 5 works a bit, then jumps up from the table, looking at the box top, circling the table, bobbing, weaving over the table. She zooms in periodically to check out the individual pieces versus the box image. They're also eating as they solve this puzzle, stabbing food on their plates next to where they're working. The conversation is very slow, with long pauses.
Flashback, 20-something months. A reading from the Texas Book of Beasts, page 62. The Texas Book of Beasts, the origin story.
Why did you buy okra?
Here it is. No, wrong piece. Oh, when I got to the store, the frozen food section was cleaned out, except for the okra.
How much did you buy?
Look, I'm trying to concentrate here. Oh, here it is. Oh, so satisfying. I bought 6 packages.
Why? We don't like okra.
It looked so unwanted. I'm just a softie.
A softie for frozen produce.
I saw it doomed to go to the landfill due to expiring in 2 months.
It oozes and slithers and squishes and slides, and when pinned by a fork, squirts out its insides.
Gross.
So a thinking person simply can't believe that okra is a plant.
Another one. Oh, that completes the roof. Hey, that was funny. Who wrote that?
I did, for Creative Writing 201.
Ah, that's the art course you passed, right?
Yes. The playwright course was taken as kind of a prank. I already had the credits I needed.
Do you have the top of the telephone pole?
Yes. Your bit goes in here.
Onto the cow.
In the creative writing class, I had to write either a 20-page short story or write 20 poems on a particular theme. My opus was the Texas Book of Beasts.
Tell me some of the other ones.
Okay, a note on animal hygiene. The javelina should be cleaner, and like the ocelot, should wash a lot, but does not.
Not bad.
Note, the professor made no specifications on poem length. An excerpt from the annual animal inventory of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, the GNs. A native Texas has not one gnu, but there are ganats, and quite a few.
Irritating that the backside of the cow is the shrubbery. What cow really stands in shrubbery? Let's write a play.
You write the play. Remember, I flunked the course. You're the one who got the C+.
Actually, I got a B. I was very pleased. We could work in your poems somehow.
Oh, a play in verse. Ugh.
It's been done before. Do you have the piece with the cow's horn?
I think I saw that piece here.
Thanks. Maybe we could round up the group from the play class to put it on. They have formed their own acting group. Work out of a warehouse on the east side. I still know like one or two of them. I run into them at co-op.
They will certainly remember us.
You're telling a dozen GAR jokes for your semester project?
That was a very subtle piece about personal obsession.
Hey, what was my theme? That was my theme. You copied.
I had no idea what you were up to in your play. Everyone in class turned around to look at me as you went on. Then right after the play,
I was trying to say, will you let me buy you a coffee? And got stuck on the L. Will you?
I saw you as a beautiful, nice, transparently smart, incredibly shy woman. During the performance, I was mostly thinking, why me? Am I really someone she wants to meet? I knew it wasn't a joke. When you came up to me, I was really curious what you were trying to say.
I remember I stuttered. Everybody was watching and silent, and my cast and several in the audience were looking at me with a, you could do this, expression. And then I switched to, will you join me for coffee? My treat. You took a long time to respond.
You know, I listened during your performance. I was not remotely interested in dating. I wanted to get the degree, get a good job, everything in its time. But you read me exactly right. You described me as sharp brain, good heart. That is my self-image in 4 words. Nothing else mattered. I was processing this information.
Well, you just stared at me for a while. And then the cast started to chant, and then the audience.
Go, 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 go.
I had everything scheduled for years. Then in 15 seconds, the schedule changed.
Yes. That class will certainly remember us when we write the play.
You write the play.
I write the play. I'll pass it off to the theater. We'll see what happens.
While you are busy writing, please let me buy the vegetables. Oh, could you work in a scene about Biles whales? Oh, duty calls. What do you call a gar offended by a colleague passing wind?
Madagascar. Why is the professor obsessed? A reading from page 67 of the Texas Book of Beasts, Warts.
And that concludes my presentation on the tricks of the trade in amphibian embalming. Any questions?
So, Professor, all of your professional career has been spent studying frogs, toads, salamanders. Can you explain to us this compulsion you have concerning amphibians?
It all goes back to my childhood. When my parents refused to let me keep animals in my room, one night I was playing with this toad while in bed. When my father came in, I stuffed the toad down into my pajama bottoms. And before my father left the room, I was asleep. And when I woke up, I had
You had what, Professor?
Warts in my shorts.
Warts in your shorts!
Warts in my shorts. Big ones and small ones. Oh, warts all in my shorts. Because of that toad, I had warts in my shorts.
Warts in his shorts! Warts in his shorts!
My childhood was spent finding clever retorts when my buddies made fun of those warts in my shorts.
Warts in his shorts! Warts in his shorts! So that's why he writes these slimy reports. His buddies made fun of the warts in his shorts.
I thought a toad would make a unique pet. They seem loyal and affectionate and maybe trained to go and get you cookies and some chocolate. If you but gave their back a rub and bribed them with a juicy grub, but then I couldn't wear jocks, so I couldn't play sports. No little league fields or basketball courts because of that toad and those warts in my shorts.
Warts in his shorts!
Oh, they tried liquid nitrogen.
Flat ones.
Bumpy ones.
Warts of all
They
sorts!
tried acids.
It's the fault of that toad he has warts in his
I
shorts!
never wore swim trunks or went to resorts because of that toad and those warts in my shorts.
No Disney World.
No Schlitterball.
Warts in his shorts! Warts in his shorts!
I never had girlfriends because I couldn't play sports.
It's the fault of that toad and the warts in his shorts!
When I ride in a boat, I don't straddle the thwarts.
It's the fault of that toad and the warts in his shorts!
A reading from page 67 of the Texas Book of Beasts. Happy ending.
So, when you go to the property boundary, you look uphill into a tangle of live oaks, grass, and brush with no trail or path, for the Conservancy won't allow it. And the trees seem to go on climbing the valley for miles. At dusk, if you scrunch yourself down into a size of 8-year-old Tommy Pfeiffer who lives nearby, you could fit through a hole in the fence and pick your way through the undergrowth, ignoring the mosquitoes and the chiggers. And looking carefully for snakes, you would come, after about 500 yards, to a clearing. A series of puddles in the limestone, fed by a spring that doesn't spring, but seeps out for about 50 yards of creek bed before diving down again into the soil. If you sit there until the sun is below the horizon, it helps to bide your time by softly crushing the fleshy end of a grass stalk between your molars. You will hear everybody talking.
Hey baby, hey baby, hey baby.
The end.